What if the people you call friends are actually distractions from the friend you need most, yourself? What if isolation instead of a punishment was the hidden classroom of self-mastery? And what if the Stoics, men who walked alone yet changed, history, held the key to both connection and solitude? This is not a video about being antisocial. This is not about retreating from the world or pretending you don't need anyone. No, this is a video about truth, the kind of truth the Stoics whispered to themselves when the crowds faded and the room grew quiet. The truth about who your real friends are, the truth about what kind of friend you are, and the truth about why sometimes the loneliest moments are the most sacred ones. Let's begin not with philosophy but with a scene. Imagine Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, standing alone on a balcony as the city sleeps below. Candles flicker. He hears no voices, only wind. He has armies at his command, a wife, children, philosophers at court, generals in waiting. But tonight he feels alone, and he does not run from it. He writes. He opens his journal and pens words not for the world, but for himself. He writes, "Don't waste what's left of your life in guessing what others are thinking." What does that mean for us? It means that even the most powerful man in the world knew this. The mind can be more crowded than any marketplace. And sometimes the only way to reclaim peace is to stand alone. The Stoics valued friendship deeply. Seneca, in particular, wrote of friendship as something sacred, without which even life itself is not life. But he also warned of false friends. Friends who flatter, not challenge. Friends who praise, not elevate. Friends who offer presence, but not principle. So the Stoic didn't avoid friendship, but he curated it. He asked, does this person help me become more virtuous? Do they bring me closer to wisdom or further from myself? And most of all, he asked the question that few dare to, do I rely on this person to fill a hole I refuse to fill myself? Because if the answer is yes, then what you have is not a friendship, it's an emotional crutch. This is the first lesson the Stoics teach us. Do not seek friends to escape loneliness. Seek friends who can walk beside you in it, without needing to fix it. And to do that, you must first become the kind of person who can sit with their own isolation, without fear. Can you do that? Can you sit with the silence in your room and not flinch? Can you go a whole evening without reaching for your phone just to feel connected? Can you hear your own thoughts without needing someone else to distract you from them? If you can, then you are learning what Epictetus called self-sufficiency. Not arrogance, not independence for its own sake, but the ability to hold space for yourself when the world grows quiet. Epictetus was born a slave. He had no wealth, no freedom, no property, not even his own body, which was crippled early in life. But he had his mind, he had his reason. And through that, he found a kind of inner companionship that even kings envied. He said, freedom is the only worthy goal in life. It is won by disregarding things that lie beyond our control. And what lies beyond our control more than the behavior of others? Their loyalty, their presence, their approval. That's why the Stoics teach us this. True friendship begins where dependency ends. When you no longer need someone to validate your worth, you can finally love them for who they are, not for what they give you. This is the paradox of Stoicism. It leads to deeper connection by teaching you how to be alone. Because when you no longer fear solitude, you stop clinging. You stop manipulating. You stop betraying yourself just to keep someone in your life. You become honest. You become present. You become a real friend. And real friendship, Stoic friendship, is not loud. It's not always constant. It's not based on shared opinions or identical worldviews. It's based on shared values, a shared love for virtue, for truth, for becoming better, not just happier. Seneca wrote, "Associate with people who are likely to improve you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve." He saw friendship as a kind of mutual mentorship, not a hiding place from the world, but a training ground for it. But that kind of friendship, it only grows in those who have made peace with their own solitude, because only then can you say, I don't need you to complete me, but I choose to walk beside you. And that, according to every Stoic, is the highest form of love. Now let us imagine Seneca, older and exiled from Rome, once a powerful voice in the empire, Now a quiet man in a quiet villa, banished, misunderstood, alone. His former friends have vanished. The letters stop arriving. The gates don't knock, and still he writes. He writes not to them, but to the one person who never left, himself. And in this moment, Seneca teaches us a profound truth, that when false friendships fall away, solitude stops being lonely. It starts being clean. You begin to see who was truly walking with you, and who was just walking beside you until the road got hard. This kind of realization breaks most people. But not a Stoic. A Stoic expects it, prepares for it, and welcomes it as part of the natural rhythm of life. Seneca said, "Misfortune is virtue's opportunity." And when it comes to isolation, the misfortune is often that people leave us. But the virtue, the opportunity, that comes when we stop chasing shadows and start standing on our own foundation. Ask yourself, how much of your time has been spent maintaining shallow relationships just to avoid the ache of solitude? How many times have you said yes when your soul whispered no just because you didn't want to be alone that night? How many people have you called friend when deep down you knew they didn't challenge your growth? They just distracted you from your pain. The Stoics weren't naive. They knew we are social creatures. Marcus Aurelius himself said, "We are made for cooperation, like feet, like hands, like eyelids." But he also said, "If you are distressed by anything external, it is not the thing itself, but your judgment of it." In other words, the loss of a friend is not what wounds us most, it's the meaning we attach to that loss. They left, so I must be unworthy. They stopped calling, so I must be forgettable. No, the Stoics would interrupt that thought mid-sentence. They would say, wait, is that true or is that ego? Because when you build friendship on ego, on need, on expectation, on hidden contracts like, if I love you, you must never leave, you are not loving the person. You are trying to possess them. But love, as the Stoics saw it, is not possession, it is alignment. And alignment can only happen between two whole people. Two people who have learned to enjoy their own solitude, who have walked through the fire of isolation and come out not bitter, but clear. Only then can a relationship become a real exchange. Not two half-empty glasses draining each other, but two full vessels pouring freely without fear of loss. Think about your own friendships. The ones that lasted, the ones that didn't. Think of the people who stayed when you had nothing to offer. Think of the ones who disappeared when you set a boundary. These are not accidents, they are revelations, and the Stoics didn't run from such revelations, they studied them. Seneca might ask you, have you built your inner citadel yet? The place inside you that no betrayal can touch, that no silence can shake, that no absence can make you forget your own presence. If not, that is your task, because only from that citadel can you love freely. Only from that place can you offer friendship that doesn't chain others, but frees them, that doesn't demand, but welcomes, that doesn't collapse when distance happens, but instead grows stronger through time and space. This is how the Stoics transformed the idea of friendship, not as a need but as a virtue, not as a fix but as a choice, not as something you grasp for, but as something you become worthy of. And to become worthy, you must first befriend the silence inside you. You must learn, as Epictetus said, to be a fortress untouched by loneliness, to walk the streets without needing to belong, to eat alone without shame, to be misunderstood and remain centered, because the friend who can survive their own mind becomes a gift to every mind they meet. It's strange, isn't it, how much we long for others, yet how rarely we ask if we are good company for ourselves. The Stoics believed that friendship was not about how many people gathered around you, but how many remained when the mask fell. How many stayed when you stopped entertaining? How many honored not your image but your essence? And here's the hard truth. The deeper you go into your own integrity, the smaller your circle may become. But that's not a tragedy. That's a filter. That's your soul doing the quiet work of removing what no longer aligns. Marcus Aurelius put it this way: when you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. He didn't mention to be surrounded or to be validated. No, he returned to the inner life, the self that lives regardless of circumstance. And when you learn to live there, deeply and fully, you find something unexpected. You begin to attract others who are doing the same, not out of need, but out of resonance, not to complete you, but to walk beside you. The Stoics never rejected connection. They simply asked that it be honest. They asked that it not become a substitute for solitude, that it not become a drug to numb what needs to be felt, that it not become the mask behind which we hide from ourselves. Because what is the point of being surrounded if you feel invisible anyway? What is the use of constant interaction if it leaves you emptier each time? Seneca would say, you must live for yourself before you can live with others. And that doesn't mean selfishness. That means integrity. That means asking yourself, what kind of friend am I when no one's watching? What kind of energy do I bring into a room? Am I a refuge or a ripple? Do I challenge others toward virtue or drag them into gossip and comparison? These are the questions Stoics lived by. They did not fear solitude because they trusted their inner life. They did not chase connection because they knew that right relationship begins within. And from that place, something radical becomes possible. You no longer take rejection personally. You no longer beg for inclusion. You no longer silence your truth to be palatable. Because now your sense of self is not up for debate. It is not rented out to public opinion. It is not offered in trade for temporary affection. You are anchored, and from that anchoring, friendship becomes what it was always meant to be. Not performance, but presence. Not convenience, but commitment. Not a place to hide, but a space to be revealed. This is how the Stoics held friendship, as sacred, not superficial. They asked, does this relationship serve growth? Does it reflect truth? Is there reciprocity? Are we both striving towards something higher, or are we just avoiding being alone? These questions are difficult. They may thin your circle, but they will deepen your life. And in time, the few who remain, the ones who meet you in truth, who walk with you in silence, who don't flinch when you're honest or falter when you're hurting, those friends are more than enough because they do not complete you. They complement your solitude. They walk beside your citadel, but they do not live inside it. Only you do. And if you have made that citadel strong through silence, through reflection, through choosing growth over approval, then you have something rare. You have a self that can stand alone without fear and love others without clinging. That's not just friendship, that's freedom. Seneca once said, a man who has many friends has no friends. At first glance, that line may feel cynical, even harsh. But what if he wasn't dismissing connection but elevating its meaning? The Stoics weren't cold. They loved deeply, but they loved deliberately. They saw friendship not as an escape from themselves, but as a mirror for growth. And what's a mirror worth if it only flatters you? They wanted friends who would sharpen them, not soothe their illusions, who would stand in truth, even if it was uncomfortable. And to have even one friend like that was enough. The problem today is not that we lack connection, it's that we confuse contact with closeness. We mistake interaction for intimacy. We scroll, we message, we like. But how often do we sit across from someone, in stillness, in truth, and allow ourselves to be seen without the performance? Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, be tolerant with others and strict with yourself. Why? Because we often reverse the formula. We excuse our own lapses but hold others to impossible standards. The Stoics flipped that. They practiced self-accountability and compassion outward. They expected the best of themselves and offered grace to those still learning, and that includes friends. A true Stoic friendship isn't about perfection. It's not about someone who always agrees with you, always praises you, always makes you feel good. No, sometimes the best friend is the one who challenges your ego, who points out your contradictions, who reminds you gently or directly that virtue isn't built in comfort but in challenge. And here's what's powerful. When you've done the work of solitude, when you've faced your silence, when you've learned to enjoy your own company, then, and only then, can you receive that challenge without collapsing. You no longer hear disagreement as betrayal. You hear it as opportunity, You no longer need your friends to protect your ego. You invite them to test it. Because the friendship built on Stoic foundations is not fragile, it's forged. It doesn't break at the first sign of misunderstanding. It grows through friction. It survives space. It matures with time. Why? Because both people involved are whole. They do not grasp. They do not guilt. They do not trade love for obedience. They walk together, not because they must, but because they choose to. And if the day comes when they must part, they do so with respect, not resentment. Seneca wrote, "Nothing is more honorable than a grateful heart." And perhaps the deepest Stoic gratitude is not for what a friend gives, but for what their presence reveals in us. The reflection, the trigger, the inspiration, the mirror. Friendship then becomes spiritual training, a dojo for the soul. 1. Where you fall and rise together, where you disagree without disconnecting, where the silence between conversations isn't filled with insecurity, but with peace. Because both of you are anchored, and between you something rare is growing. Mutual regard, mutual growth, mutual truth. So if you find yourself alone right now, if your circle has shrunk, if your phone is quiet, if your calendar is empty, do not despair. You are not broken. You are being prepared. Prepared to recognize true friendship when it arrives, prepared to offer it without demand, prepared to receive it without dependency. The Stoics knew this season well. They wrote to themselves for years before those words ever reached others. They cultivated their own minds as their first friend, and in doing so, they became the kind of people who, when they finally met another soul on the same path, could say, "I do not need you, but I am honored to walk beside you." And isn't that the kind of friend we all hope to be? It's a strange moment when you realize the friends you lost were not losses. They were revelations. Not everyone is meant to stay. Not every connection is meant to last forever. And the Stoics knew this deeply. They didn't fear the ending of relationships. They feared self-abandonment in order to keep them. That's why the Stoics built themselves from the inside out. They trained their minds like warriors. They cultivated solitude like a sacred garden, because they understood that every great friendship must first begin with the one you have with your own soul. And when you live from that place, when your silence is strong and your values are clear, something beautiful happens. Your relationships stop being reactive. They become intentional. You no longer need to fix people. You no longer need to prove yourself. You no longer settle for shallow validation. Instead, you seek depth. You seek alignment. You seek truth. And yes, this may mean fewer people. It may mean longer nights with only your thoughts. It may mean letting go of relationships that once felt like home, but now feel like cages. But what you gain is worth more. You gain sovereignty. You gain clarity. You gain the ability to walk through the world with a steady gaze, a calm breath, and a heart that gives without gripping. Seneca once wrote, "We must take care whom we allow into our lives. The entrance to the soul must be guarded as carefully as the body." He saw friendship not as an open door, but as a sacred threshold. You don't let everyone in, not because you are cold, but because you are finally warm enough inside to not seek fire elsewhere. And when you do choose to let someone in, it's no longer because you need them. It's because you see them. You see their journey, their effort, their values. You recognize something familiar. And from that mutual recognition, friendship is born, not from craving, but from capacity. This is the Stoic gift, not independence, but interdependence, not isolation, but choice, not rejection of others, but reverence for the self, so that others are no longer objects of rescue or reward, but partners in growth. Because the friend who has faced their own aloneness does not fear yours. The friend who has walked through silence does not rush to fill yours. The friend who knows themselves sees you more clearly, and in this space a new kind of connection is possible. One that doesn't need to be constantly affirmed. One that doesn't fall apart under tension. One that grows not because it is easy, but because it is true. So if you find yourself today in solitude, embrace it, not as punishment, as preparation. You are learning to sit with your thoughts without judgment. You are learning to choose quality over quantity. You are learning that not all company is comfort, and not all silence is suffering, and in time the loneliness will soften. The ache will shift, and you will look around and realize you have become the kind of person who can be trusted, with truth, with love, with another soul's vulnerability, because you've walked through your own, and that is the beginning of everything. And now, as we arrive at the final stretch of this journey, the Stoics would not give you a conclusion. They would give you a beginning, because to them, knowledge was not for decoration, it was for transformation. They would ask, now that you understand solitude, what will you do with it? Will you run back into the noise, desperate to be seen again? Or will you walk forward, more slowly, rooted, discerning, free? Because that is the ultimate Stoic teaching about friendship and isolation, that one prepares you for the other. That solitude is not a curse to escape, but a foundation to stand on. And only when that foundation is strong can true friendship be built. Real friends don't fear your silence, they honor it. Real friends don't panic when you set boundaries. They respect them. Real friends don't demand access. They earn presence, but to recognize such people, you must first become one. Become the person who listens more than they speak. Who asks better questions than they give answers. Who stands whole in their solitude, and so offers presence, not projection. It's easy to be social. It's harder to be sincere. It's easy to gather people. It's harder to let them go when they no longer align. It's easy to say yes. It takes wisdom to say no with grace. But this is the life of the Stoic. Not a life of detachment, but of depth. A life where you are not afraid of being alone, because you know who meets you in that way. Quiet. A life where you are not afraid to lose people, because you've already found yourself. A life where every friendship is chosen, not clung to. Honored, not hoarded. Freed, not forced. This is the kind of presence the world needs more of. Not just people who want to be seen, but people who see. Not just people who want to be heard, but people who listen. Not just people who gather followers, but people who grow together, and to become that kind of person. You don't need more. Friends, you need more silence, more stillness, more time spent with the one person you cannot escape, yourself. Only then do you become someone worth walking with. Only then do you carry the kind of peace that comforts others. Not because you fix them, but because you remind them what it looks like to be whole. That is Stoic friendship. It is not for the many, it is not for the distracted. It is not for those who fear the mirror. It is for those who have walked into their own minds, lit a lamp, and made peace with what they found. There. So if you are in a season of loneliness now, know this: you are not behind, you are not unloved. You are not forgotten. You are being called inward, into reflection, into clarity, into stillness. And if you answer that call, if you learn to sit with your thoughts, to listen to your soul, to walk with your own shadow until it softens, then, when someone does come along, someone true, someone real, someone grounded in their own solitude, you will recognize them, not by what they say, but by how it feels to be around them, still, unforced, free, like two fires that do not compete, but share the same light. That is the friendship the Stoics spoke of, and that is the life that now calls to you. If these Stoic quotes helped you find peace in your loneliness, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. More Stoic wisdom is on the way, and leave a dot so I know you were here.